Welcome to the Make Space for Growth podcast. My name is Sara Vicente Barreto, and I'm your host. I'm a corporate strategist, problem solver, social entrepreneur, writer, mom of two, and passionate for growth, at home, in business, or in my community. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I hope you enjoy our conversation today. If you're a regular, make sure you hit the subscribe button and do drop us a review. That would make my day, maybe even my week. This is season 1 of the Make Space for Growth podcast, Finding Growth in a Crisis. In this season, I have asked amazing women leaders around the world to join me in a fireside chat to talk about how they have dealt with lockdown and the COVID-19 crisis. We will spend some time learning about their business and how they have coped or not with it. Quarantine, lockdown, shelter in place, whatever it may have been called in your country. For me, this has been an inspiring time. I find crisis can create excellent opportunities for cleansing, decluttering, and finding new avenues. At home and in our business, crisis can make space for growth. Join me for this journey to find out how, because it is time for hope and light. So far this season, we've been in London, Milan, Lisbon, and San Francisco. It is time to take a journey to Singapore. For episode 5, I have Pridhee Gupta. Pridhee was born and brought up in Bahrain. She studied biochemical engineering and biotechnology from IIT Delhi in India. She completed her bachelor and master's from IIT and went on to complete her PhD on plant molecular biology from the University of Heidelberg in Germany. In 2007, after completing her PhD, she got married and moved to Chicago. After the completion of her husband's MBA, they moved to Sydney, where she joined the Faculty of Science department of Macquarie University. In 2012, they had their first child in Sydney, but a few months later decided to move to Bangalore with their daughter. Bangalore is the place where the journey of Tea for Tales, her company, started. In her journey as a first-time mom, Pridhee quickly realized that there were not enough interactive board books in Indian languages to read to her toddler. She could find an abundance of English interactive board books, but not enough in her own mother tongue. This was the genesis for Tea for Tales. The company helps Indian parents living in India and abroad introduce Indian languages to their children in their very early years through interactive storybooks and rhymes. After trying out life in Germany, USA, India, and Australia, she's now comfortably settled in Singapore and also works at an international IB school in Singapore. A happy mother of 2 girls, teacher, entrepreneur, storyteller, who doesn't have all the answers, but is certainly looking to find the right way to raise her children. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into it. Pridhee, welcome to the Make Space for Growth podcast, and thank you for accepting my invitation. Before we go and talk business, I have a little icebreaker, which is, can you tell me what did you like to do as a child? What was your favorite thing to do? And what did you want to be when you grew up?
I think the best thing that I enjoyed as a child was, it sounds really boring, but I think it was reading. I used to read a lot, and my mom wasn't very happy because I used to read a lot of novels. So I used to hide my novels in my school textbooks so that she wouldn't know that I'm reading something other than schoolwork. So I really used to, and maybe it was the fact that she didn't like it. I probably enjoyed it even more. I don't know if it was that. But yes, I really enjoyed reading, and I used to love reading about other countries. So I had this... I used to imagine myself as a researcher in a very swanky lab in a lab outside of where I lived. But somewhere deep down, I think I always wanted to be a doctor, probably because my dad was an engineer and I knew what that looked like. I was very fascinated by biology. But when the time came to actually be a doctor, I think I ran away from it.
It was one of those things that kids like to do.
Yes. The sight of a needle used to scare me, so I never really went ahead with it.
In the previous podcast, I had a doctor from the UK, and actually that was the only thing she ever wanted to be.
Oh.
She didn't run away from it, so...
I took the easy way out. I wanted to be a doctor. And I was fortunate enough that my sister wanted to be a doctor. So I went to her university to see what they did. And I got so freaked out and I said, no, I'm going to find the next best option. I'm not going to be a doctor.
Exactly. So, Pridhee, I have spoken a little bit about what you do and all your background in the intro. But maybe if you could give me a little bit more of your side of the story and your take on Tea for Tales and how you created it and where you are today.
Tea for Tales actually started, it sounds really, there's so much history behind it because of the fact that it started because of my daughter. So I'm actually a trained molecular biologist, and I've moved countries a lot with my husband. And finally, there came a time when we said, okay, we're going to have a child, and we want to have a family, and we had our child, and that was when it so happened that we moved to India. And this was me moving back a 4-month-old child, and I was very keen on teaching her our language. But I really struggled with finding something that was interesting and that was catchy as the English books. There are lots of books. I mean, I'm not saying there are no books. There are lots of books. For that age group, I couldn't find anything that would catch her eye. It started off as a joke in a party where somebody said, you're complaining, why don't you do something about it? And that somehow just stuck with me that, okay, you know what, maybe I'll give this a shot. Maybe I'll do this for my children. And even if this doesn't become like a big business, I will just do this so that my children don't have to go through this, that what I'm going through right now. And fast forward 5 years, we've done 6 books, and we started with 1 language. We're now doing 3 languages. We're a team of 5 people, and we're spread out in multiple locations. So that's Tea for Tales.
It's one of those that you start as a bit of a selfish idea, and then the selfish idea spreads to, actually, this is really good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned already your team is spread around the world. Can you just talk a bit where they are, kind of their functions, and maybe how do you sell your product?
We started off as just me, and of course a couple of illustrators who illustrated my book, and the printing press. I moved printing press. I always try to look for people who can be more innovative, so it's never one printing press. But we started off with just me and my husband. And then my friend in Bangalore, she said, hey, you know what? I do social media marketing, so maybe I can handle marketing for you. So she's handling marketing for us in Bangalore. We had one of our other friends in the US. She said, I can make the music for you. So she decided to make the music for the books. And that's how, we became a team of 5 people. We started with me, my husband, and then another friend and another friend. And now we've hired 2 more people who work with us. So we're sort of spread out in India, US, and Singapore at the moment, but always looking for people who would love to join us. As for how we sell our books, it's primarily been online. But of course, there have been really small independent bookstores, which we love to support because I absolutely believe in bookstores and the fact that children or adults can walk in and just explore a book. That's how I started it. So I'm always looking for small bookstores who would be willing to, stock our books. But primarily online through Amazon or other partnerships.
Pridhee, I think what people may not realize is that this is your side business. You actually have a day job as a teacher at the moment. Can you talk a bit, when does this side business happen? How do you organize yourself around it?
Oh, there's never any time. I'll be very honest with you. The list never ends. I have a chalkboard by my bed, which is always full with a list of stuff to do. I do have a day job. I work as a primary school teacher in an international school here. But most of my side business work happens anytime from 7:30 p.m. in the evening till whenever I can stay awake. But I make sure from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. is the time I'm with my children, and I do not compromise in that.
Right. I think we gave a good background on where you are. So now let's talk about what happened this year. Let's talk about COVID-19. Sometimes it feels like old news. Sometimes it gets back to new news again. Why don't we start with business a bit, and then maybe we can talk about your family life as well and how that got disrupted. So first, can you maybe explain what happened in your business when you entered lockdown? What measures did you have to take, if anything, that changed in the way your team operated or your employees? Can you talk a bit about that, please?
I'll probably start from the time when lockdown, it looked like it was going to happen. We saw a downward, in our sales. We saw a dip in our sales happening. So we could sort of see that this is not going to look very good for this year. And we started talking about what other options do we have if this actually happens, if we go into lockdown, because our primary concern was that because we sell mostly online, what's going to happen with shipping, what's going to happen with production, what's going to happen with distribution, and how are we going to ensure that our customers get what they need. We started planning for that. One thing that we did was that we requested our printers if they could print some extra copies for us prior to the lockdown. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, because of the reason that they were preparing to finish up the work that they had, so they couldn't take on any new projects. The second thing that happened for us was that when countries went into lockdown, countries like US and India went into lockdown, shipping absolutely stopped. So nothing could go in and nothing could go to customers. So that was the time when we knew that sales were not going to happen. But the other problem that we had was, because parents were in lockdown, there was a demand for the books. So we
demand.
Yeah. So we had an increased inflow of demand, but we couldn't supply. And that's when we started pivoting, and we decided that instead of relying on our books, we're going to provide storytelling sessions online, so that if we can't provide the book, at least we can provide an audio file or a video session to sort of give a resource to parents who are really looking to use this time resourcefully. So we use that time that way then.
Wow, that's a very fast pivot that I'm sure it became part of a lot of people's day-to-day as they have to be locked down at home. I know you mentioned already about the production and the distribution, and that your suppliers were struggling because they were still finishing orders. Eventually, you still needed the books. Did you change suppliers? Did you have to find new ones? Did they eventually find you some more product, or did you just stop selling completely?
So I think for about a month we stopped selling, but because we had an increase in the demand, we did employ more marketing people to sort of support us in the social media marketing campaigns. But eventually, by the end of, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I think the market sort of realized that books were becoming an essential good. They came into the essential items category, and then we were able to sell again. That's when we could sort of fulfill all the client orders that we got in the 3 weeks that we couldn't sort of supply.
Yeah, it's pretty essential. I have bought a lot of books during lockdown, children books.
We were very excited when we got into that category.
Exactly, that's exactly the category that you needed. So you started talking a little bit about this. Your customers were in a way more distant because you couldn't reach them, but at the same time closer than before, because they were home, they were online all the time, and they were pretty desperate to get their hands on entertaining books. As you launched these new campaigns and these audiobooks, how did the customers react? How did you interact with them in different ways?
I think we used social media marketing to our advantage in this, because we, of course, when shipping started, we see a lot of behavior change in that there were a lot of people who were implementing mother tongue at home. So Indian languages sort of went to the forefront in these places, and a lot of people wanted these books because this is a great time for them to not have to focus on what was happening in school, and they were homeschooling and they needed the resources. But at the same time, we used social media marketing to sort of get their attention and connect with them more on a personal basis rather than just through a business way. I think that was actually something that I probably would have not done had it not been for the lockdown. Social media marketing happens, but yes, you connect with your customers, but it doesn't happen on a daily basis. People had time, people were coming, people were watching, people wanted more. And we really enjoyed that connection with our customers who came to watch what we were providing or the resources that we were providing. So that was a huge change that we saw.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned to me before that you also did a bit of a crowdsourcing of your customers at some point. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was a very cool way of engaging people and kind of looking forward for something new in the future.
Yeah, that was actually a very fun campaign that we. So as I said, we thought of investing in social media marketing people. We hired marketing people for ourselves because I'm obviously no expert in marketing, and I needed more brainstorming of ideas. And during the brainstorming, while we were engaging with customers, a lot of customers came back to us saying that, we really enjoyed the storytelling sessions. What else can we do? And one of the ideas that came up was, all right, how can we start a campaign to engage customers to sort of help us, yet help themselves? So we started a campaign in which we said, all right, everybody can, provide us an audio file or upload an audio file on their page, singing their favorite nursery rhyme or their favorite song, and we'll share it on our page. And that way, everybody's providing a resource as a community rather than just for individual pages. So it sort of became a community where everybody came and they shared their nursery rhyme. They provided audio files. We chose the best audio file and we put it up. And there were some languages which people really appreciated because it connected with their childhood and they'd not heard it for a long time. And that was what then we decided, all right, this one worked really well. And we put out a question to people, would you like to see this in a book? And we used that as our database saying, okay, people want to see this in a book. This can be our next book. And we started working on that. I think that was a great way to get more content for ourselves.
Can you just give people perspective of how many people actually speak the languages in which you're translating or creating these books? Because sometimes they're creating these books in this language.
So when I started researching about Hindi, a lot of people in India speak Hindi. I mean, India has got many number of languages and many number of dialects, but broadly you would say majority of these people speak in Hindi. And even the Bollywood movies that are so popular are in Hindi. When I started researching, I said, you know what, I don't know how big this can be. And we started researching and we got a number which said there are 341 million people in this world who speak Hindi. And I'm sure this number has changed because when I saw it, it was probably 2 years or 3 years ago. And I'm sure it's more than that now. So yes, there are about 340 million speakers, Hindi language speakers in this world.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant market, I would say. So, Pridhee, I know that Singapore had a bit of a start and stop. India's been affected, and you said your team is spread out other places in Asia and the US, where we're still under strain. As things have reopened in some of the places, how did you prepare for that change in customer behavior and for that change in your team? Can you share a bit of your experience as things have reopened and how your day-to-day has changed again?
For us, the first thing that we've been doing is we've been celebrating our small wins. So because it's been a bit of a start and stop, any window of opportunity we get, we just latch on and we try to maximize it as much as we can. Our interactions with customers has increased and our sales it's been up and down because as and when shipping can happen, it changes. There are days, for example, last week, I was told that the place that I wanted to ship to, the the friend who's sitting in Bangalore who's going to distribute the books for me, that place has gone into red zone. So suddenly for 1 week, I wasn't shipping any books. But then on Friday night, she tells me, hey, we're not in the red zone anymore. All right, tomorrow morning, we're shipping it out. So, so it's literally been like, I see a window of opportunity, I go for it, and then we're sitting down quiet for a week, and then again we go for it. So it's pretty much been that way. But it's been really nice to see a community building on social media and otherwise people messaging and saying how much they appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure you build an entire new connection there. I know you already worked all remotely, and so probably you were all very used to being not in the same building as many people have to struggle with. Did this period change in any way how your team is organized and how you're structured? It does feel like you became much more lean in terms of just decision making, but if you're thinking back to the last 5 months, how do you think this has changed you and the connection with the team and the way that you operate?
I think my biggest thing during this time has been that I'm not hesitant to contact people anymore. That barrier of, the distance or maybe that person doesn't have time for me, the response time between people has become lesser. So I'm not hesitant. And I have to be honest, because during this lockdown time, my team may have not changed, but we've kind of supported each other so much because we all know that we're at home and we have families at home. So if my marketing person tells me, hey, you know what? I've had a very bad start to the day. I'm like, all right, that's okay. You know what? I'll take this over. So that way we've become a little more accommodating of each other because we know we've got families at home. And that being said, also, like I said, speaking, I've become less hesitant to connect with people, and I've actually been open to learning from people because it's a new learning experience for everybody. So everybody's kind of open to sharing, hey, I did this, you want to try this? So that has been actually really nice.
That's great to hear. Pridhee, I know crises are very tough, but they're also, as you just alluded to, a huge opportunity for a bit of change, a bit of cleansing. And this is indeed a big part of why I'm bringing this podcast to light. As you look through your old habits, are there any ways in which you did business or in which you operated with a team that you say, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore, being reticent to contact someone, or maybe new things that you think you're going to take up, whether between your team or with your customers?
If I had to turn back time, I think I would just tell myself, don't hesitate to connect. There's nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose when I contacted especially other women entrepreneurs. It's been such a nice journey connecting with other women entrepreneurs because there's been so much that I've learned. I think if I had to turn back time, I would have just told myself that, come on, just connect. So I've grown so many relationships during this time. It's been such a positive experience. There have been so many people who were willing to mentor or willing to help or willing to connect, whether it was an influencer or an entrepreneur or my own team. We've just sort of picked up each other and gone ahead with it.
Started talking about how you snap each window of opportunity. Assuming this crisis kind of stays for the foreseeable months and you're going to continue to operate between those windows, how can you make the most and how will you make the most of this opportunity?
Just continue with the grabbing my opportunity whenever I can. Make the most of it with whatever I have. Like I told you, whatever I see, if there's a window of opportunity, just grab it, go for it. And if it continues, obviously we'll keep pivoting, we'll keep readjusting. But the biggest thing is to realize that if you have it now, go for it now. Don't think twice, just do it.
Yeah, that sounds like the only way to plan at the moment. It's to just
absolutely.
And Pridhee, you talked, about this new community, about the audio files, and about this crowdsourcing you did. Are there new business areas that you're seeing emerge that you think this crisis has created for you?
So initially, when we started, we didn't think people would be interested in that many languages. We thought probably it would be the key languages that happen. It would be Hindi, it would be Tamil, it would be Gujarati. But this lockdown has actually brought so many people into our community that I have actually had the opportunity to speak to so many other women who were probably stay-at-home moms, and I've said, hey, can you translate this for me in this language? Because somebody has just asked me if you could do it in this language. So we've actually spoken about 7 different languages, which I probably would have never imagined. So the lockdown is definitely having that community and understanding what my customers are looking for and what lengths they are willing to go to learn a language, and especially give that to their children, the culture and the heritage, has really helped me understand that people want it. People want other languages, and there is a lack for it.
You alluded a little bit to your advice about connecting with people. Knowing what you know today, would you give yourself any other advice if you had the benefit of going back, 5 months? What would you tell yourself? What learnings do you have?
I think my biggest learning was don't lose sight of your vision. If you have a vision for your company, there will be lots of people doing lots of different things, but don't lose sight of your vision. Just keep asking yourself, why am I doing this? And that answer that you get for a why needs to keep you going. Because initially when I started, I was like, oh, they're doing this. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, they're doing that. That's so awesome. Yeah. But I got to keep reminding myself that this is why I'm doing this. Use that as a way to connect with people. And then people see your vision. So I would keep reminding myself that.
So we've told the audience you live in Singapore and you already had different forms of soft and hard lockdown there. Can you just explain first, for context, what was lockdown like there and what were the limitations and how did it kind of start and end? So
initially, I think for Singapore, actually, it started in January for us. We didn't go into complete lockdown, but we've sort of been at the edge since January. And being a primary school teacher, very early on in January, we had to start taking the precautions where, if you were sick, you didn't come to school, and you had to mask up if you were sick. If you had a fever, there was no way you were coming in. So the trend was starting to come up end of January. As a family in the lockdown, very early on, I had to go through the quarantine, and I shared that with you. I was in quarantine for about 14 days, and that was an eye-opener for us as a family. So going from everything being normal to being quarantined in a room with my kids outside was a very different experience. And then, of course, once I got out, things went into lockdown and we were on to home-based learning, which was virtual sessions for the kids. Husband at home, I'm conducting my virtual sessions. So that was pretty much what lockdown looked for us for a while.
Because people, a lot of people, probably self-included, are like, how do you manage it all, having to work and having to have your kids in some sort of remote schooling, but you are actually teaching other people's kids as well. And so I find that added experience. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked and how that was transformed? Because you were one of the professions that got more transformed as well. Because I think people will be curious about that after all these months, learning to appreciate teachers more.
It was definitely a very big learning curve as a teacher, because suddenly you have to come up with innovative ways to teach your class through a screen, and there's no way you can keep 25 students engaged through a screen without losing your mind. So it was tough. I think the biggest thing for us was that the first thing we decided as a family was that let's not have very high expectations from schooling. Let's accept it that one of the kids is not going to learn anything, and the other one, maybe we can give some attention. So I have an 8-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. So we said, all right, 3.5-year-old, you go play. 8-year-old, attend your virtual Zoom sessions, and let's get this going. So that's how it pretty much worked for us. And I think I have to give full credit to my husband here, because he absolutely nailed it. We were a great tag team. If I went in, he came out. If he went in, I came out. So we were a great tag team that way. We managed our calendar in that way. He was in between jobs, which was also really nice, because he scheduled his interviews in a way so that we could sort of take our roles. He was an equal partner and helped me a lot.
That's great. That's great to hear. and I can't imagine the amount of Zooms and Microsoft Teams and Google Classrooms that were going on in your home at the same time. Pridhee, you're a full-time teacher, a nighttime entrepreneur, a mother, a household manager. How did you manage to stay productive and working through these times?
For us, the biggest thing was that we wanted to stay sane together. That was the topmost thing, that let's not lose our minds. And credit to my husband, he made sure that we did a 5-minute calm meditation session every morning. We exercised together, we danced together. So that kept us going. But most importantly, I think there was a lot of gratitude, because we gave ourselves the goal that we won't think, we'll just do. And if we manage to do it, we'll celebrate the win. So that's sort of what got us through that as a family. And I think even for me as an entrepreneur, there's no time to think. You just do, and then if there's an outcome of it which is successful, you celebrate the win. I have opened a champagne bottle if I've had 2 sales as well.
I think there was a lot of that going on during this time. You got us started already, because I think, you talked about meditation and exercise and kind of staying sane together. This has been indeed a tough time for people's mental health, whether they're with family, too much family, or on their own and too much personal isolation. Can you share any other tips of things that you guys have found that helped you manage yourself personally and your mental health through this time, in addition to the meditation and the exercise?
I think, bless my kids, I must have taught them something right during their early years, that they connected really well. And that kept me sane a lot. I think the fact that seeing them connect made me feel that things are okay. Had it not been that easy with them, probably I would have started wondering something's wrong. I need to fix it. But the fact that as a family, we all connected so well. We connected to extended family, kids connected with each other, and they bonded so well that now they're sort of inseparable, and that's priceless for any parent to watch their kids bond. So that kept us going for sure. And like I said, just celebrating the small wins. We took it one day at a time.
That's great. And what do you think was your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge, I think, was not having boundaries. It was a gray area of switching off and switching on again. You go to work, you do your work, you switch off, you come back home, you're with your kids, you switch on again, you do your entrepreneurship work, and you sort of, you've had a good day. But I think the biggest challenge in the lockdown was, when do I switch off? And how do I switch off? Because things are happening all the time. People are in different time zones. Everybody has the time, and everybody wants their personal space.
And I know I told you already how much I, enjoyed the freedom of being locked away from mandatory social events. And we all had things we liked, and we all had things we didn't like about lockdown. But given this is a podcast about growth, what new opportunities did you find with being stuck at home with your family? Did you start new things together? What grew in the family during this time?
I think, as I mentioned, my kids grew fonder of each other, which was very nice to see. I mean, the fact that they were playing games together, and we did a lot of things together. Like I said, we exercised together, we danced together, we did a lot of things together. But the biggest takeaway for us was that they bonded, and we successfully managed to get our kids to speak in our language, which again was very nice to see. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like with not having this time now, but at the same time, having the time together. Yes, I'm also anxious to step out, and we've grown as a family, we've bonded more as a family, we've danced, we've exercised, but we've also bonded on things that were related to my childhood, because there was only so much of screen time that we could have. So out came the games that I played as a child, and we bonded over those. So that was nice.
Yeah, we started doing puzzles.
Oh, nice.
I haven't done a puzzle God knows in how many years I hadn't done a puzzle. And so I said, right, this is the time. Yeah, let's start it off. And I think in the end, it was more for me and my husband than the kids. And sometimes they come and put a little piece and they're very happy because we went for a pieces puzzle. But it was interesting because it was a completely new thing, board games, arts and crafts. There was all sorts of stuff that we, you have to recreate if you want to keep them away from the screen. There's no
Absolutely.
Pridhee, thank you so much. This has been great, but I do have a surprise round that I didn't tell you about before. They're very short questions.
Sure.
We heard the podcast before, so you have a little bit of a preview. So just tell us the answer that comes to mind first.
Sure.
What was your favorite lockdown book? And you're not allowed to say one of yours.
I'm gonna say the ones that I read out to my daughter because I relived all my memories through her. I think it was The Wishing Chair.
And what was your favorite sport for lockdown?
Cycling.
And what was your favorite lockdown technology?
Zoom.
I'm still to find someone who's not going to mention Zoom. Actually, I think Christina on the last one mentioned WhatsApp. But yeah, absolutely. And what was your greatest lesson?
My greatest lesson was to connect. Just connect. Don't hesitate. Connect.
And if you had one word to describe lockdown, what would that be?
Grow, grow, grow.
All right, that counts as a word. Thank you so much, Pridhee. This has been great to know you and to know how you've done and how you've dealt with all this in lockdown. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. I loved hearing about how Pridhee created new ways in which to connect to her customers and build a community that ended up providing her with new content and a very clear picture of what her customers want to buy. It was also lovely to hear her advice on how they've kept sane through lockdown, through meditation, exercise, dance, and ultimately a sense of gratitude and celebrating the small wins. Connect with me and tell me what your biggest takeaways were. As I said, this is our very first season and your support would be great. Please rate us and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. You can read more at makespaceforgrowth.com and join our community to access our free Facebook group at Make Space for Growth. Please share your thoughts and questions on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I will add all the links for myself and for Pridhee to the show notes. It has been a pleasure bringing this fireside chat to you today. I am grateful you are there. I get to do this.